this video, we wanted to take you through the process we went through to get the tree plantation registration for our farm. Once the trees are grown, if we decide to harvest them, having this permit is the first step in being able to sell and transport the lumber and other products from the trees on the portion of the land that we've designated for commercial purposes. I've seen quite a few questions and some misconceptions regarding tree farming in the Philippines. Hopefully we can help with some of those in this video. We recently put out another video outlining some of our motivations for starting a native tree farm and for getting this permit, and we suggest you check those out as well. So I'll take you through the process we went through to get this permit. There's an order DAO 2020-18 that was put out dealing with tree plantation establishment and the handling of tree products, and I'll link it in the description. It's a good idea to read through that before beginning a plantation. Also, before you start planting, I would suggest that you go to your local DENR, CENRO, PENRO, and ask them about regulations that might affect you. There's a lot of nuances to these laws and to land classification in the Philippines, so your particular situation might have other requirements or restrictions. And while I'll outline the process we went through here, you should base your decisions on advice you get from the local government office. So take all your paperwork, title, tax declaration, any other details that are specific to your situation. Take that to them and explain your plans to make sure there isn't some circumstance that would prevent you from utilizing your trees in the future if that's your goal. And that's the first step we took when we began this process. We brought the paperwork of our property to our local CENRO, and we told them about our plan and asked if it'd be allowed and what steps we needed to take to make it possible. And I have to say, throughout the process, the people at our CENRO were very helpful, and they were happy to answer questions as we went through the process. One of the main questions I had was if we could get a permit for native tree species like Nara or Camagone, because we'd heard that that would be difficult or even impossible. But they said that shouldn't be a problem if they're trees that we're planting. And as you can see from the permit, all of the species we planted were included. The next step was organizing all of the necessary paperwork. We needed certified true copies of our title and tax declaration, and we needed the sketch map of our property. I've often heard that land needs to be titled to register a private tree plantation on it, but that's not always the case. In some cases, tax declaration land can also be registered, so if your plans involve that, you should check if it's possible for your particular parcel of land. And we also made a letter of intent. The one we made is pretty basic, as you can see, and I also redacted some parts of that in these other documents. We provided a couple of photos of the area, and we also asked for a certificate of non-objection from our barangay stating that they didn't object to our plans. And I'm not actually sure that that certificate was absolutely necessary for the process, but it doesn't hurt to have your barangay back you up. Also, we needed to fill out an application form for a certificate of tree plantation ownership. That involved listing beneficiaries, and I guess that seems logical if you're thinking in terms of time periods that are as long as a tree lifespan. We also needed to list the trees we planted, their physical characteristics like their average height. And at this point, I'll note that to actually get the certificate, your trees need to already be planted. And I wasn't honestly overly comfortable with making that investment if the registration wasn't guaranteed, but that's how it is. And at any rate, you can ask about the feasibility of your plans prior to planting to lower your risk. Okay, the final part of the application form involves getting signatures from your neighbors on the north, south, east, and west sides of your property. And to catalog our trees, representatives from CENRO visited the planting site. They took photographs, took measurements of the trees, and we already had a list of the trees and a rough map that we had made for those trees, and also the trees were already labeled. So I don't think that's required, but it was already done to help us keep track of what's planted where, and I think that made the process with Senro go a lot smoother. Since we have quite a few species growing on the farm, they could find them relatively easily. After all that was done, we were given the registration. Now that the registration is granted, once the trees are at a harvestable size, if we decide to sell them, we get a third-party tree plantation certifier to issue a certification, and that'll be used in the transport of the lumber. That order I mentioned earlier, DAO 2020-18, notes that when the logs and tree derivatives will only be used inside the landowner's private property, no certification will be needed. When I talked with the Senro people, it sounds like despite that, it's not a bad idea to contact them if you're going to be doing any kind of processing of the wood, so that they're aware of that there's activities going on there, in case somebody who notices you're doing something calls them suspecting that you're harvesting wood illegally. There are some other regulations that need to be followed, so prior to harvesting any wood or tree products, you'll want to be sure you're following them. For instance, you have to have a chainsaw permit if you're going to use a chainsaw, and if you'd like to establish a wood processing facility, like a little sawmill, you'll want an application for that also. So you'll want to talk to the people at Senro about those requirements prior to harvesting. Going over the whole process, once here, it's looks rather involved. In reality, it wasn't really difficult, but it did take a significant amount of time and traveling on our part. So it's good we have it done now. We don't have to worry about it anymore. When we plant more trees, we will need to register those as well, so I'll let you know how that goes. But knowing that the plantation permit was approved, that gives me a lot more confidence investing some time and money into additional plantings in the future. That rainy season is just around the corner for us, and that means that we'll be able to start our second planting season soon, so we'll keep you updated with how that goes. I hope seeing the process that we went through is helpful. Please feel free to leave any questions down in the comments. If you did find it helpful, we'd appreciate it if you subscribe to our channel. And that's all for us. Thank you. Have a nice day.